The town of Dry Creek was the kind of place where secrets grew like weeds, quiet, stubborn, and impossible to pull up by the roots. Dust hung in the air, settling on every porch and window, and the sun beat down so hard it seemed to bleach the color from the world. In the middle of that faded town, a single event was about to change everything that IT started at the auction house, a battered old barn at the edge of Main Street. The crowd was restless, voices low and eyes sharp, as men gathered to bid on cattle, tools, and on rare and desperate days, people. This was one of those days. She stood on the platform, hands bound in front of her, chin lifted in defiance. Her name was Lila Mae Carter, and though her dress was plain and her hair tangled from the journey, there was a fire in her eyes that no amount of dust could dim. She was not a woman who belonged to anyone, but fate and misfortune had brought her here to be sold like a mule to the highest bidder. The auctioneer's voice rang out, sharp as a whip. Who'll start the bidding for this fine young lady? Strong, healthy, knows her way around a kitchen and a field. Who'll give me $5? The crowd shifted, some men looking away, others leering. Lila's jaw tightened. She would not cry. She would not beg. She had survived worse than this. From the back of the crowd, a man stepped forward. He was tall, broad-shouldered, with a face that looked like it had been carved from stone and left out in the sun too long. His name was Jack Rowley, a rancher from the outskirts of town, known for his hard work and harder silences. He didn't look at Lila, not at first. He just reached into his pocket and pulled out a single silver dollar. "One," he said, his voice low but steady. The crowd laughed, a rough, ugly sound. The auctioneer frowned. $1? Come now, gentlemen. Surely she's worth more than that. No one else. He spoke. No one else moved. The silence stretched, heavy and uncomfortable. Jack met the auctioneer's gaze. $1. Take it or leave it. The auctioneer hesitated, then shrugged. Sold to Mr. Rowley. Come collect your property. Lila's heart pounded in her chest. She stared at the man who had just bought her freedom, or her captivity, for the price of a loaf of bread. He stepped up to the platform, his eyes meeting hers for the first time. There was no cruelty in them, only a kind of tired kindness. As if he'd seen too much of the world to judge anyone harshly, he untied her hands, careful not to hurt her. Come on, he said quietly. Let's get you out of here. She followed him through the crowd, her head held high. The townsfolk watched, some with pity, some with envy, some with nothing at all. Jack led her to a battered wagon hitched to a sturdy bay horse. He helped her climb up, then took the reins and set off down the dusty road that led away from town. For a long time, neither of them spoke. The only sounds were the creak of the wagon and the distant call of a hawk circling overhead. Lila stared at her hands, rubbing the red marks left by the rope. Finally, Jack broke the silence. You got a name? She hesitated, then nodded. Lila Mae Carter. He nodded. Jack Rowley. My place is about 5 miles out. Not much, but it's quiet. She glanced at him, searching his face for any sign of threat or intent. Why'd you buy me? He kept his eyes on the road. Didn't seem right, leaving you up there. Figured $1 was a small price to pay to keep you out of worse hands. Lila studied him, unsure whether to trust his words. You expect me to work for you? Cook, clean, all that. Jack shrugged. If you want to, or you can rest. Up to you. I won't keep you if you want to go. Just figured you could use a safe place for a while. The wagon rattled over a rut, and Lila gripped the edge to steady herself. She looked out at the endless stretch of prairie, the grass waving in the wind like a sea of gold. She had nowhere else to go, no one waiting for her. For now, safety was enough. Why reach the ranch as the sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink? The house was small but sturdy, with a porch that looked out over the fields. Jack helped her down from the wagon, then led her inside. The air was cool and smelled of wood smoke. Jack showed her to a small room at the back of the house. You can sleep here. There's water in the basin and some bread on the table. I'll be outside if you need anything. Lila nodded, her throat tight with exhaustion and relief. She washed her face, ate a little bread, and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. The events of the day crashed over her in a wave, and for the first time in weeks, she let herself cry. Quiet, bitter tears for all she had lost and all she might still lose. Outside, Jack sat on the porch, watching the stars appear one by one. He wondered what kind of life this woman had led, what had brought her to that auction block, and what would become of her now. Inside, Lila lay awake, listening to the sounds of the ranch, the wind in the grass, the creak of the porch, the distant lowing of cattle. She didn't know what tomorrow would bring, but for tonight, she was safe, and that was enough. But as the night deepened and the world grew quiet, both of them knew that safety was a fragile thing, easily broken by the past, or by the secrets that still lingered in the dark. Morning came with a pale, golden light that crept through the cracks in the shutters. Lila woke to the sound of boots on the porch and the low murmur of Jack's voice as he spoke to the horse. For a moment, she lay still, letting the warmth of the blanket and the unfamiliar sense of safety settle over her. Then she sat up, washed her face, and stepped quietly into the main room. Jack was already at the table, pouring coffee into 2 tin cups. He looked up as she entered, his expression unreadable but not unkind. "Morning," he said. "Morning," she replied, her voice still rough from sleep. He slid a cup toward her. "There's bread and honey, if you're hungry." She nodded, taking the cup in both hands. The coffee was strong and bitter, but it chased away the last of the night's shadows. They ate in silence, the only sounds the crackle of the fire and the distant calls of birds outside. After breakfast, Jack stood and pulled on his hat. "I've got to check the fence line. You're welcome to stay inside, or come with me if you'd rather not be alone." Lila hesitated, then nodded. "I'll come. I don't want to sit and think too much." They walked the fields together, the grass wet with dew and the air fresh with the promise of a new day. Jack moved with the easy confidence of a man who knew every inch of his land. Lila followed, her eyes scanning the horizon, half expecting trouble to come riding over the next hill. Yes, they worked. Jack explained the rhythms of ranch life, the way the cattle needed moving, the importance of mending fences before the storms came, the quiet satisfaction of a day's work done well. Lila listened, grateful for the distraction, and found herself asking questions, wanting to learn why midday they paused beneath a lone cottonwood tree, sharing water from a battered canteen. Jack glanced at her, his gaze thoughtful. "You ever worked a ranch before?" Lila shook her head. "My father was a blacksmith. I helped in the shop, but I've never done much with animals." Jack nodded. "You'll pick it up. You're tougher than you look." She smiled, a small, genuine thing that surprised them both. "I've had to be." They finished the fence and headed back to the house. As they walked, Lila felt a strange sense of peace settling over her. The land was quiet, the sky wide and endless. For the first time in a long while, she didn't feel hunted, but peace, she knew, was always temporary. That evening, as the sun dipped low and the shadows stretched long across the fields, a rider appeared on the road. Jack saw him first, his body tensing as he watched the figure approach. Lila followed his gaze, her heart pounding. The rider was a man in a dusty coat, his hat pulled low over his eyes. He stopped at the gate, dismounted, and walked up to the porch with slow, deliberate steps. Jack met him at the door, his hand resting on the butt of his revolver. "Can I help you?" The man looked up, his eyes cold and sharp. "Name's Burke. I'm looking for a woman, Lila Mae Carter. She's wanted for theft and running out on her debts." Lila stepped into the doorway, her chin lifted. "I'm Lila. I don't owe you anything." Burke's lips curled into a sneer. "You owe plenty. Your father left a pile of debts, and someone's got to pay. The law says you belong to me now." Jack's voice was calm, but there was steel in it. "She's not going anywhere. You want to talk about debts, you talk to me." Burke's eyes narrowed. "You paid $1 for her. That don't make her yours." Jack stepped forward, his presence filling the space between Lila and the stranger. "She's not property. She's a person, and she's under my protection." Burke spat on the ground. "We'll see about that. I'll be back, with friends." He turned and mounted his horse, riding off in a cloud of dust. Lila's hands shook as she watched him go. Jack closed the door, locking it behind him. "Don't worry. You won't get past me." She looked at him, fear and gratitude warring in her eyes. Why are you doing this? You don't even know me. Jack's gaze softened. I know what it's like to have no one stand up for you. I won't let them take you. That night, the ranch was tense and quiet. Jack sat by the window, rifle across his knees, while Lila tried to sleep in the back room. But sleep wouldn't come. She lay awake, listening to the wind and the distant howl of a coyote, her mind racing with memories and fears. In the darkness, she remembered her father's words. Trust is a rare thing, Lila. When you find it, hold on tight. She rose and walked quietly into the main room. Jack looked up, surprised to see her. I can't sleep, she admitted. He nodded, gesturing to the chair across from him. Sit. No sense facing the night alone. They sat together in the flickering light, sharing stories in low voices. Jack told her about his childhood, about the war that had left him with scars inside and out, about the wife he'd lost to fever years ago. Lila spoke of her father, of the life they'd tried to build, of the dreams that had turned to dust. As the night wore on, something shifted between them, a quiet understanding, a sense of belonging neither had felt in years. The walls they'd built around their hearts began to crumble, brick by brick. When dawn finally broke, painting the sky in soft pink and gold, Lila felt a strange sense of hope. She wasn't alone anymore. Whatever came next, she would face it with Jack by her side. But as the first light touched the land, a shadow moved on the horizon. Trouble was coming, and this time, it would not be turned away so easily. The morning air was thick with tension. Jack and Lila worked in silence, their eyes drifting off into the road, watching for any sign of Burke and his promised friends. The ranch felt smaller, the world closing in around them. Every creak of the windmill, every distant hoofbeat set their nerves on edge. By midday, the sun was high and merciless, baking the earth and making the shadows sharp. Lila tried to keep busy, feeding the chickens, sweeping the porch, anything to keep her hands from shaking. Jack checked the rifle, loaded extra shells, and made sure the doors and windows were secure. It wasn't long before the dust cloud appeared on the horizon. 3 riders this time, Burke at the front, his face twisted in a sneer. The other 2 were rough men, the kind who did bad things for a few coins and a bottle of whiskey. They rode straight up to the gate, dismounted, and spread out, hands never far from their guns. Jack stepped onto the porch, his stance calm but ready. Lila stood just inside the door, her heart pounding so hard she thought it might burst. Burke called out, his voice loud and mocking. I told you I'd be back, Rowley. You got one chance. Hand her over, or we take her and burn this place to the ground. Jack's voice was steady, carrying across the yard. You're not taking anyone. This is my land. You want trouble, you'll get it. Burke laughed, but there was no humor in it. You think you can stand against all of us? For a woman you bought for $1. Jack's eyes never left Burke's. She's worth more than every man standing here. The words hung in the air, heavy and true. For a moment, even Burke seemed unsure, but greed and pride are stubborn things. Burke spat on the ground and drew his gun. The other 2 followed, weapons glinting in the sun. Jack moved first. The crack of his rifle split the silence, and one of Burke's men dropped, clutchy, in his leg and howling in pain. The second fired wildly, bullets splintering the porch rail. Jack ducked, returned fire, and the man fell, his gun skittering across the dirt. Burke hesitated, rage and fear warring in his eyes. He aimed at Jack, finger tightening on the trigger. Lila stepped out onto the porch, her voice ringing clear. Stop! Haven't you done enough? My father's debts died with him. You have no right to me or to this land. Burke's hand shook. You're nothing but a runaway. You belong to me. Jack's voice was cold as steel. She belongs to herself. And if you want to leave here alive, you'll ride out now. For a long moment, no one moved. The only sound was the wind, whispering through the grass. Finally, Burke lowered his gun, his shoulders slumping. He looked at Lila, then at Jack, and something in his face broke, pride, maybe, or the last shred of hope for easy money. He turned, mounted his horse, and rode away without another word. The wounded man limped after him, leaving his partner behind in the dust, silence fell over the ranch. Lila let out a shaky breath, her knees weak. Jack caught her as she stumbled, holding her close. "It's over," he whispered. "You're safe now." She looked up at him, tears shining in her eyes. "Why did you do it? Why risk everything for me?" Jack brushed a strand of hair from her face, his touch gentle. "Because you're worth it. Because everyone deserves a second chance. And because I think I need you as much as you need me." Lila smiled through her tears, the weight of fear and loneliness lifting from her shoulders. For the first time, she let herself believe in a future, one not defined by loss or running, but by hope and belonging. The days that followed were filled with quiet joy. Lila found her place on the ranch, working beside Jack, learning the rhythms of the land. They laughed together, shared stories, and built something new from the ruins of their old lives. One evening, as the sun set in a blaze of gold and crimson, Jack took Lila's hand and led her to the porch. He knelt before her, his eyes steady and full of promise. "I know I bought your freedom for $1, but I never wanted to own you. I just wanted to give you a choice. Will you stay here, with me? Not as a debt, not as a bargain, but as my wife." Lila's breath caught. She looked at the man who had risked everything for her, who had given her safety, respect, and a place to belong. Her answer was simple, and it came from the deepest part of her heart. "Yes," she whispered. "I will." They married under the open sky, with only the wind and the wildflowers as witnesses. The town gossiped, of course, but neither Jack nor Lila cared. They had found something rare and precious, a love born not of desperation, but of courage, kindness, and the stubborn will to survive. As the seasons turned, the ranch flourished. Lila's laughter filled the house, and Jack's quiet strength anchored them both. Together, they faced whatever storms came their way, knowing that as long as they had each other, they could weather anything. And sometimes, late at night, as they sat by the fire, Lila would remember the day she stood on that auction block, terrified and alone. She would remember the man who paid a single dollar, not to own her, but to save her. And she would know, deep in her soul, that she was finally home. So, if you're listening to this story, wherever you are, remember, sometimes the smallest act of kindness can change a life forever. Sometimes, the person you least expect will become your greatest ally. And sometimes, love finds you in the unlikeliest of places, if you're brave enough to accept it. Now, tell me, where are you listening from tonight? And what would you risk for a second chance at happiness?